Hey Capstone, I hope that all of you are doing well. My name is Vincent Shoup and I'm going to be talking to you all today about my senior thesis and just about how I developed my thesis and kind of the process that I went through in order to develop it. And so first I want to start off with saying the title of my thesis, and that is Disease Prevalence in Developing Countries. And so I am planning to enter the healthcare field. After graduation, I'm going to be going to nursing school, and then after I graduate from nursing school, I plan to work as a nurse for a while, and then I would like to eventually become a nurse practitioner or a physician's assistant and have my own practice, but also do some work in other countries, like developing underprivileged countries. And so I wanted to find a topic that really interested me and something that would challenge me to find information, but it ended up challenging me a lot more than I originally thought it would. And so in my paper, I'm talking about, as stated by the title, disease in developing countries. And so my focus question is, how can the spread of communicable disease be isolated and deterred in an effort to aid those in the developing world? And so I want to go ahead and clarify what communicable diseases are. So a communicable disease is something that can be transmitted from person to person, whether that be from being in close contact, from bodily fluids, from unsafe sexual intercourse, etc. And so it was really challenging to find literature over communicable diseases. A lot of the literature that I found was over non-communicable diseases. And so a non-communicable disease is something that's not transmitted from person to person. So it would be something, for example, like diabetes. If I'm standing next to someone with diabetes, I'm not going to acquire that disease. And so that's non-communicable. And so a lot of the literature that I found was non-communicable, so I really had to do a lot of digging, a lot of research and reading just to find enough sources to be able to address this topic. And so the purpose of my paper was I really just wanted to explore what was out there already on the topic, and then what could be done differently, or how current researchers could work together in order to find some sort of solution through integrating their different disciplines. And so the disciplines that I used were health professions and organizational leadership. Those are both two of my concentrations, and so I felt like I'm very well versed in those. I know them pretty well, but also they're very directly applicable to this issue. And so disease exercises no bias. Disease can affect anyone. Here in the United States, though, disease control is controlled very well, like it's mandated very well. We do have disease spread in the United States, but it's not near as severe or scary as it is in underdeveloped countries or developing countries. And so in those countries, a lot of those people, they don't have the same healthcare access that we do. They don't have the same access to even like hygiene products that we do, or clean water, or, they're malnourished. There's a lot of different things that go into play of why disease affects them more heavily and why communicable diseases spread so much in developing countries. And so, yeah, I just found this topic really interesting and wanted to just see what I could find out about it. And so I want to specifically talk about health professions first. And so, before I get there, whenever I was trying to narrow down disciplines, there's a lot of things that may seem like they're applicable to this issue. So, you can look at sociology, psychological aspects, even like business or economics, and of course health professions and organizational leadership. But the reason why I chose health professions and organizational leadership and identified that those were the most relevant disciplines for this project is because of their underlying concepts and insights. So health professionals, their goal is they want to deliver the best quality of care to a patient as a way to improve their quality of life. Like, that's the main goal, is to help a patient who is sick and not in good health and help them to get to a better quality of life. And so, of course, that's applicable in this sense and in this project because in developing countries, when people are affected by disease, they're not living a great quality of life, or what quality of life they could live. And so health professions is directly applicable. And then I also, organizational leadership is directly applicable because an organizational leader, their main goal is they want to provide a service or some kind of care in the most efficient way that they can, in the best way that they can. But in order to implement any kind of efforts, like for health professionals to aid those in developing countries, there has to be some kind of governing body. And so that's where an organizational leader would come in. That's where that discipline comes in. And so organizational leaders, they would be in charge of, like, heading up a project, managing all the logistics, even like the monetary aspects, because of course in order to do anything you have to have money. Our world operates on economics and money, and so organizational leadership was the second applicable discipline for this project. And so there were some challenges in this project to integrate those two disciplines, health professions and organizational leadership, because although they both kind of have some of the same underlying concepts of delivering great quality care or great quality service, there's some differences because health professions is very medicine clinical based. It's about the clinical aspects of care, so like medicine, lab testings, things like that, whereas organizational leadership is more so the businessy aspects of it. And so some of my literature for health professions examined different ways that communicable disease spreads in developing countries or why it happens. So one of my articles discussed latrine practices, and so like how people go to the bathroom. And so in a lot of developing countries, they may not have plumbing and proper disposal of sewage and things like that. And so a lot of times they practice open defecation, meaning that they will just use the bathroom anywhere that they can. And that poses a very big health risk and definitely contributes to the spread of disease. And so that particular article talked about how that makes the spread of disease become even more risky and more prevalent, and just about some ideas of how to implement sanitary latrine practices. And then I had another article for health professions, and that article discussed how to inform people when there's some kind of disease outbreak in a developing country. And so they tested using SMS text messaging. And it turned out that ended up being a very efficient and worthwhile way to monitor disease spreading and to alert the proper people to know when disease is spreading. But yeah, like for example, I'm sure we've all heard about when Ebola was a very big concern and a big outbreak, or with the Zika virus. Those are both communicable diseases. And so, if they, in those areas, were able to use like SMS text messaging to alert people like, hey, this is spreading, or hey, this disease is becoming really strong, we need help. Those are things that would come into play to help to combat the issue of the spread of communicable diseases in developing countries. And then I also had some organizational leadership articles that discussed kind of overseeing disease and managing it. So one specifically was the World Health Organization, And so in that article, the World Health Organization talked about how they are wanting to team up with people, other organizations. Like the World Health Organization no longer wants to be just a freestanding thing where they are trying to address issues on their own. They want to team up with other organizations. And so I think that was one of my most prized articles that I found, because it definitely applies to interdisciplinarity and integrative learning. And so that helped me a lot when I was trying to establish my common ground. And so the common ground between my two disciplines was basically that they both are wanting to serve people. They're wanting to help people in the best way that they can in order to help someone have a better quality of life. And so in that common ground, there also came some conflicts, and I kind of mentioned that earlier, that the conflict was health professions and organizational leadership are so different in the way they operate, but the common ground that I found was each discipline is wanting to help people. And so after common ground, that's where I was getting to where I was kind of wrapping up my project and thinking about my suggestions for future research. And so through my project, I basically found that there are a lot of different entities that are acknowledging that the spread of communicable diseases is an issue. However, all of their research is very broad. And so my suggestion for future research would be there needs to be more of a concise and specific way of addressing the spread of communicable diseases, because without that, there's not really a way to stop it or combat it. And so that's where a project such as this, that was able to review a lot of literature and see where the issues were and identify them and what can be done better. And so what I would say is a good starting point would be like with the World Health Organization and how they wanted to team up with other organizations in order to combat the spread of communicable diseases in developing countries. And so, yeah, in conclusion, I mean, I learned a lot in Capstone. It definitely challenged my critical thinking even more so than whenever we were in our perspectives, the prereq for this class. And so, yeah, I learned a lot from this project. I hope that you all learned a lot from the project. If you're graduating this semester, I wish you well. I hope that it goes well, and good luck to all of you who are still continuing your education. Thank you.